Good morning. I welcome you back to Defining Moments of Essencology. I am your host, facilitator, Dr. Derek A. Reeves. And again, Essencology is the study of the essence of man. Essencology sees man as a trichotomic created being. And so Essencology then, in examining the very essence and the substantiae or substance of man, seeks to understand how man works and how these conglomerate portions of man can cause behavior, thought processes, and also perspectivism. So again, we thank you for joining us. Let's dive right in. In Essencology, we examine the term religion, or as people use, religiosity. And we first have to understand that from a definitive process or definitive perspective, religion is anything, any set of rules, any set of patterns or behaviors that are agreed upon by a set group, an order, organization, etc. So religiosity is just not a product of the church. Of course, religiosity and religion can be extended in a worldview that accepts a superior being or a supreme being. But when we look at all of the declinational definitive meanings of the term, religion is simply a perception and an adherence to agree to a set of principles, a set of guidelines, and a set of conceptual ideologies from which an individual will adhere, behave, and focus their behavior and establish belief systems from. And so when we talk about religiosity, we have to understand that if, according even to the dictionary, that religion is simply principles that are upheld by a group, upheld by an organization, an order, even a company, then we have to go back to William Dilthey's Weltanschauung. Weltanschauung was simply what we called the perspective of living or the world view. As we dissect worldviews will always take us back to a philosophical approach to understanding the universe, the origin of the universe, and everything in existence. So it will give us, to a great degree, the ontological perspective of reality, how we define it, how we see it, how we accept it. And so when we look at it, we can then add to the group of religions or religiosity philosophy, because there are different schools and trends of philosophies. There are the analyst or the annihilist. There are those who have many different concepts of science, truth, and the searching out and the seeking of understanding of truth, as is seen by the term Sophia, wisdom. Then we could actually say that there are evolutionists that belong to a religion or a religious perspective of a group, for they believe in those theories of evolution. And I do say theory because evolution has a lot of gaps in it, because it always goes back to the irreversible question: who, what, when, where, why. How then does evolution jump from chaotic states and refine those things into greater organisms or greater constructs of reality? Then we have to look at even socialism, the various types of societal construction, Africanism, animism, liberationism. All of these things are actually religion, and all of these things are actually competing for one another to gain more adherence. When someone has a conviction and a passion for their perspective, because that's all things really are. People who are religious, it is their perspective based upon experience, based upon connection and based upon those things that were sold into them, either by their own experience, by someone else's experience, or by someone sharing their viewpoint. Everything is based upon perspectivism. Because we look at slavery, perspectivism, and we say that slavery is horrible. We say that slavery, anybody who would adhere to any system that supported slavery, then they have to be crazy. But then when we look at the fact that slaves were everywhere, all throughout the world, it doesn't stop individuals who have a Weltanschauung or a world view of Africa being the cradle of civilization and Africans or blacks being the true Hebrew. It doesn't stop them from acknowledging or even not acknowledging that slavery was in Africa before it moved into, with blacks, into the Western world. Even some of the African kings now have apologized to blacks who are in this country because, as I said in an earlier video, it wasn't that the European or the Westerners just broke into Africa and took who they wanted. Africans were sold to the highest bidder. And so when we talk about kings being brought to this land, it's not necessarily so. It was the kings that sent us to this land. And so slavery was in Africa, slavery was in Egypt, slavery is still in the Islamic countries in many different forms. And so religiosity then simply gives us the toleration for our worldview. And because our worldview is our own, and because we feel that there is a benefit in it, then we use what we call the antithesis of acceptance to other theologies, other worldviews, other conceptual truths. And in reality, what we do in our worldview is to seek to establish our own truth in spite of the many flaws, in spite of the many frailties, in spite of the many misconceptions and miscongruent ideologies. And so religiosity is not just something that is connected to the church. Religiosity is connected to any passion, any group that seeks to adhere itself to a set of principles, a set of codes. So when we speak of religiosity being evil, then we cannot absolutely make that statement and not leave our own religiosity out of it. And so Essencology then seeks to investigate the nature of religion, the nature of worldviews. How do we come to form these worldviews? What is our perspective as to why we must form them? Many evolutionary psychologists believe that there is a mechanism in the brain that through evolution has caused us to be able to invent religion, invent those conceptual ideals. And so when it comes to, again, even the invention of religiosity, evolutionaries or evolutionists have to also come to understand that evolution as a passion is also a religion. And so when you say that the evolutionary process brought them to a point of bringing forth a coping mechanism to deal with the unexplainable, then do we add to the list that evolution is also brought into view, developed by the evolutionary process as a coping measure to deal with reality. And so, my friend, we don't have much time left, but we come simply speaking definitively of those terminologies. And many people, they will shift the word, which is your prerogative to do, because it is not It is not unethical, neither is it a strange point of view for specific studies, specific branches of learning to have exclusive language within their contemporary society. But when we speak of, again, religion is fundamentally a set of principles that a group, an order, an institution has come to agree with that establishes some type of criterion as to the origin of the universe, the origin of existence, and how the universe functions. And so when we speak of religiosity, we cannot just speak of the church, but we have to speak of every set, organized structure, order, school, anything that has a set of principles that are guidelines for belief, for understanding, and for operating within what we call the normal universe is a religion. I thank you for joining us again. I am your host, Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and again, I thank you for being a part of the defining moments of Essencology. Until next time, may God bless you. Jesus is still Lord, and Jesus is coming back again. God bless.